CSQ, that these two Korean jungler and top laner would be the big defining factor for these teams, but it didn't really even require that. We've seen Magifelix be huge. Cedrian as well had a brilliant game on Kalista last week, and Kasing, well, we saw where Magic he worked with Lux in his first game of CSQ, so I'm very excited to see how they play this week out.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure we'll see Lux play, but hey, we're in Pick a Ban right now. Wind and Rain over on the blue side, Team RB over on the red. Already we have a Jace, LeBlanc, Kalista ban coming from War, and we do have an Elise and a Zac ban, quite common for the red side to ban that away, and the Thresh as well to round out the first round of draft.
We do. So that Jace targeted straight at Tile. Pretty much the whole of Challenger Series qualifiers, he had that banned away from him, so no big surprise there. And the other bans, really, the only thing that's really worth noting here, in particular, is the Kalista having that being banned away from Cedric. And again, last week played it very, very well against Giants, despite against Giants. What did they play against last week? My brain has just suddenly fell apart.
Brain's turned to mush, but let's have a look at the picks instead. Galio is going to be the lock-in here for Wind and Rain. Not too much of a massive surprise, but guess what that leaves open? Team RB have picked up that.
The duo.
The duo.
The duo.
The Rakan and Xayah hasn't actually been locked in. So speak about the Rakan really quickly. Kasing showed absolute mechanical prowess on that champion over in CSQ. Just his performance on that, setting up plays for his team, really helped him push forward. And one of the reasons why they're here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't let's not forget as well, the Xayah has had a couple of nerfs coming through in 7-12. More targeted her ability to have a lot of attack speed when she's using the Q. So it does kind of make her a bit weaker than what we saw in 7-11, but it does still mean that this duo of the Rakan and Xayah together is still incredibly impactful. And who better to give it to than Cedric and Kasing, arguably one of the strongest bot lanes in EUCS at the minute. Very excited to see how they play that one out. The issue with picking these two away as a duo is you give away a lot of power picks back over to Wind and Rain here. They've already got the Galio. They've already managed to get hold of Kha'Zix, well, probably the strongest jungler outside of Zac and Elise, who have, of course, been banned away. So really the only option that leaves here for Mujin is something like Elise Sin, unless he wants to go a bit more creative. We've seen RB be quite creative thus far. This is what they can try and go for here. They can make a lot of surprises, and another surprise for us is going to be that Tristana being locked in.
Oh boy, Tristana.
Oh boy.
We have seen in LCS, Fnatic has played it.
And done very well with it too.
Extremely well. And Tristana is one of those fairly safe AD carries that does scale up into the later stages of the game. But one thing I want to quickly touch on is the fact that Mujin's champion pool seems endless at this current time. Picked up Olaf last week. Now he's got his hands on the Lee Sin. So, you know, bringing the pressure. And we've seen down on the Kha'Zix, I believe, 3 times now. This is the 3rd time he's actually picked that one up. Not too effective whatsoever. He's had very little impact in the mid and even in the early stage of the game. And with that Lee Sin on Mujin, a very aggressive jungler, it's going to lead to maybe a couple of problems for them. Fizz is the ban away for Team RB in the 2nd round of bans.
That's an interesting ban because Larssen isn't the biggest Fizz player. Maybe it's more just the fear of maybe he's been practicing it recently. Maybe they're just thinking, we've seen what you've been doing in scrims and we do not fancy seeing that come out here today. That's what I'm quite curious to see. Is Larssen's very renowned for his Vladimir, his Cassiopeia. This is a bit of a step away from what he's used to, but maybe they're just thinking we don't want to face off against this at all. Let's take it off the table and not have to concern ourselves with that. Natalia, a bit more of an expected ban. That is one of the champions that he does play quite consistently.
Yeah, Larssen plays a heck of a lot of Talia. I've been mentioning this and speaking to a couple of people, a couple of mid laners specifically about Talia. I do think she's in a really good spot. I really do. She's very safe, can wave clear fairly easily. And if someone's very mechanically gifted on that certain champion as well, like Larssen is, it can be a very easy pick off the board. She can be quite disruptive as well with the Weaver's Wall. But to round off the bans, we do have that Malzahar coming through as well as the Corki. Malzahar did get touched up a little bit in 7.12. Not necessarily buffed, not necessarily nerfed. It was more of a rebalance, I think. His ultimate still carries on dealing damage, even though you QSS now, as long as you're within a certain range. So that's quite an interesting fact to pick up for you there. Syndra is going to be the lock-in for RB. Magifelix known for those aggressive laners.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, kind of touching back on what you were saying a second ago about the Malzahar as well. I'm expecting to see it at some point today. So the fact that a ban has come through does suggest that maybe these teams are respecting the capabilities of the Malzahar. That lockdown potential, the damage that you now have from the beam, it's no longer based on the max health of the person you're targeting in an area on the ground. It now does beam damage as well. So it's a lot scarier to face off against, especially if you're a swishy mid laner. In this case, like the Syndra, who relies on going for burst herself. If you have a Malzahar flash all onto you, what are you going to do? You can't afford to burst back because you're being suppressed. No doubt you'll have a jungler come flying at you as well. It's just something you do not want to face off against. So the Syndra here was quite a safe pick to give over to Magifelix.
Yeah, there's one simple word for that, and that is Dunzo. If you do get jumped on by Malzahar, it will be a Braum lock-in for Wind and Rain. Now they only need to pick their top lane, so that is going to be a Swain. Although they can flex towards the mid. We've seen Galio 100% picked in the mid lane rather than the top carry he normally or could seem to be. So we'll see where that Swain does end up going. So that's, quite, again, 2 massive picks here for Wind and Rain. And something that RB hasn't done is shown everything. Because like I mentioned earlier, Mujin, his champion pool seems relatively endless right now. He's played Zac. The Olaf, and now the Elise. No, sorry, and the Lee Sin now. With that GP lock-in too. Again, that could really go to the mid lane. We wouldn't see Syndra top. We've seen MagiFelix play GP already, but Thal on that Gangplank now. Very heavy scaling on that champion. Is going to have a little bit of an easy time as well against Swain.
This is one of his main champions as well. He loves these carry-style top laners, you know, anything that can essentially absolutely wreak havoc in that top lane, like a Fiora, like a Gangplank, like a Jace. We already saw the Jace ban coming out against him earlier on in this ban phase. It's just what he likes to play with, and I think he feels very, very comfortable here going into the top lane. Going back to that point earlier on the Galio and the Swain, I think it was a nice switch around for them here. They may have intended to take that somewhere else, at least initially. Again, Larssen likes these very kind of hyper-scaling late-game carry-style mages. In this case, this is just saying, MagiFelix, you're not going to have a lane phase. You're not allowed to play this game until we get to the 15-20 minute mark in the mid-game where there are team fights coming through. Just trying to shut him out as best they can.
Yeah, he's not going to kill him, is basically the crux of that. So there's no point actually MagiFelix taking Ignite here, which could lead him actually to taking the Teleport, which is quite an interesting kind of draft strategy you could go for, rather than the Ghost. I mean, the Ghost will have the Syndra. She does lack the mobility. Without Scatter the Weak, it's very hard to disengage from anybody, so taking the Teleport wouldn't be such a bad idea where you know Galio will, but has actually opted for the Ghost unless he changes that around in the last second. Let's touch on the top lane really quickly. So we've got a Swain coming up against the Gangplank. Swain takes a lot of time to scale up, so does the GP.
They do indeed. It's kind of more getting the first couple of items coming through for the Swain. You go towards the Rod of Ages, for example, and once that starts scaling up, you can stay alive pretty much permanently post level 6. Because of course, for every mana expenditure you use, you heal off the back of that as well. There's another one on the bingo cards. It didn't take long. In terms of the Swain, like I say, he can sustain it very, very well with the combination of his ultimate and with the Rod of Ages. On the other side, you've got the Gangplank, who's quite happy to just barrel away for days, clear out waves with that, heal up if he needs to. But in this case, for Thal, he's probably thinking, let's hold on to that, just in case we get one of those roots landing down, and in case the jungler comes in for a gank too, I need to be able to get away here. Otherwise, I'm not going to have the kind of luxury I usually have in top lane of being able to run away, get these free wave clears down, turn up in the mid game with like an absolute beast and Infinity Edge and just wipe out the enemy team. He needs to get to that point. His team are going to be relying on him, I think, as he gets into the mid game.
The best thing about the Gangplank as well, he can influence other lanes without actually teleporting, without actually getting some TP flanks off. Yeah, free assists, free kills sometimes if you use them in the bottom lane. We're about to get into game, Des. It's going to be game number 1, Team RB versus Wind and Rain over on the blue side, Team RB over on the red. Those colours match up perfectly, but jumping straight into a pause. My goodness, would you look at that?
It happens at the start of every... It's like a rite of passage. To get into the first game of a series, you have to go through a very, very brief pause. It's just the way things are.
Yeah. Okay, so now look at War's roster. Let's quickly jump over on the side of War and go. Woolite picking up this Tristana. It has seen much success in LCS as of late. When I say as of late, literally over the last couple of days. And with this Tristana, it enables them to have this late game scaling composition with a lot of protection from AOD, a lot of protection from Larssen, and JWoww was there as well to be a frontline as well as a massive damage dealer. You have Dan to kind of push them through the early game in terms of being counter-aggressive to Mujin. But the one question I have for Dan, the one question I have for War, and this big overarching point for them, would be, can Dan actually be an influence? Because last time we saw War play, Kakan in the mid lane instead of Larssen had 5 out of the 6 kills when they played Giants in week number 1.
But this is my issue with a lot of teams like Wind and Rain here that know they're probably against arguably more difficult competition, should we say. They know that RB are one of the favoured teams to come up against. They know they're probably going to be expecting to have a very rough early game. So what do? You pick a comp that kind of doesn't give you a strong early game. You're looking for the late game for a very tanky Galio. You're looking for the Swain to get to 2 or 3 items. You're relying on that Tristana to get to higher levels so that she's more impactful. And this is where I think teams begin to make mistakes. You pick these comps in the reliance that you're going to be able to get to late game in the first place. For RB, they're just thinking, you know what? They don't even need the late game. We've got the Lee Sin. We know we can shut Dan out of the game. You know, Dan, unfortunately, his champion pool isn't as expansive as Mujin. And Mujin, when we're putting that pressure on, he'll be using that experience that he's got from Korea to really start applying pressure onto Dan. And my issue is that Dan doesn't kind of stay relevant in the early game. Where's the mid game going to come through for Wind and Rain? How are they going to find themselves getting to that late game point where the Tristana can really start carrying them through?
With that Tristana, is it going to be that kind of catalyst in that late game which they need him to be? Obviously, Tristana's passive, being able to increase the range with every single level of her basic for her basic attacks and abilities. It's going to be pretty big. It's going to be able to stand out of the way of MagiFelix's damage. Mujin's, even Thal's. Cedrian as well needs to get fairly close with Desire to make it so effective. But I mean, JWoww up on that top side, coming up against another scaling top laner in that Gangplank. he might have a little bit of trouble because very, very low mobility on the Swain. Gangplank can cleanse out of the binding. And will Mujin just kind of be this god on this early game that he is kind of known for?
I'm very interested to see how this plays out for Cedrian, picking up the Doran's shield here as well. You do get left with one pot, the same as you now do with Doran's blade, thanks to the crossed increase that came through in 7-12. But my thinking behind why he may have chosen to take this away, of course, is Tristana's E. The passive is the explosions around anything that she kills. In this case, he can just stand there, take that very, very light tickle of passive explosion damage and get that regen that kicks in from the shield. So realistically, he might find himself healing more than what those explosions do in the first place, in which case it's a pretty comfortable lane for him. You know, maybe it's a bit of an oppressive lane coming up against a Braum Tristana. We've seen what they can do before. The Braum lands a Q, you get the explosive E coming down from Tristana, you stack that up, you get the stun down, and it's a free full stack explosion coming through from the Tristana, and it can really, really hurt you. So this is more based on the survival, I think, for Cedrian and Kasing. They're acknowledging that actually, you know, this might be a bit of a tough lane up. We're against an experienced AD carry in Woolite. Let's not push our luck.
Not pushing their luck. That's exactly what Cedrian's saying with that Doran's shield pickup as well, rather than Woolite picking up that Doran's blade. Mujin already making the early roam, picking up his own red buff, then going straight to Dan's blue buff. He's going to be able to steal that way pretty handily. The interesting start, because we've seen all throughout today, everybody starting Raptors. That's exactly what Dan did. Now his blue buff has been taken away.
Absolutely. Not yet currently knowledgeable of this either, but we spoke about this with Dan. This is where he's going to find himself getting pressured out a lot by Mujin, and already they've spotted that he's on this blue side of the jungle. The question now for Dan is, does he try and make a beeline for the red-blue buff and try and take that one away? The answer should probably be no, because you don't want to get yourself into an early fight against that Lee Sin, who's now got double buff.
A nice knock up on Woolite there from Kasing. He's been such a fantastic Rakan player. I mean, a real standout performer, you'd say, in CSQ. I remember one fight specifically in the mid lane where he gets a double into a triple knock-up from the Charm. It's the playmaking champion, which is what he knows, what is known and loved for playing. MagiFelix in this mid lane, like you said, isn't going to be able to do all too much against Larssen on this Galio, extremely tanky. And MagiFelix actually opting for that Ghost, so we're not actually going to see a teleport. Woolite again getting knocked up, did actually use the leap away, but AOD is going to be there with the shield and the protection for it.
This is the really nice thing about Rakan, is that your grand entrance is actually a lot quicker than what the Tristana's jumps can be. So she can either sit there and try and channel away the jump, but you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. It's like back when you played Tristana into like a Blitzcrank, for example. If you get grabbed, you can't jump away because immediately a rocket punch follows through, you find yourself knocked up, and your jump is then worthless. So you basically take a free beating. That's why you're relying on AOD to get in the front line here, get that shield up, and prevent the damage coming back down across from Cedrian. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough lane. We've already seen it so far. He's already had to burn through his pot. He's taken a lot of harass. Not the easiest probably lane they expected to do, and just wise play, I think, from Kasing here. Taking the Ignite as well, very aggressive.
MagiFelix chunking Larssen out a fair bit. Doesn't have the Ignite, so can't get any going for anything too aggressive. Generating a small CS lead. Kasing, time and time again, leaping in and out with that Battle Dance as well. It's providing a lot of shields to Cedrian. And with that coin, something me and Medic spoke about earlier before the broadcast even started, was the fact a lot of these Rakan players are now taking the Spell Thieves rather than the coin. The coin was used for the engagement of the Talisman of Ascension, and the Spell Thieves really added that extra pressure, I'd say, and extra damage in the early stages of the game for the Rakan, but opting for that isn't too much of a problem when he's diving in and out like he is at the moment.
Yeah, it's more just kind of the acceptance that maybe you won't get down as much harass as you would like. It only takes one kind of failed engagement for Kasing to get in there, get himself caught up by a stun from AOD, and he finds himself in a very difficult position. You know, Rakan generally not regarded for being the strongest laner, much more impactful in teamfights when you can use the Charm and the Grand Entrance to try and get that CC down. As we've seen him make before, he's done some fantastic plays previously. In this case, it's more just the acknowledgement that, okay, I'm not going to have such an easy lane phase. Let's just build up that gold, get that Talisman for the team fight engages for my whole team, and we can worry about that when we get to the later stages of the game.
Yeah, Mujin now tracking Dan very, very well. Did triple buff Dan. Dan, like I mentioned before, he has not really had much of an impact. Played Kha'Zix twice now, and he just hasn't really got any kills on the board. He got a couple of assists in the best of two that they did have, but like I mentioned, Kakan, not their mid laner anymore. He's subbed in for Larssen, and Larssen with Kakan with a 5 out of the 6 kills that War did manage to secure against Giants last week. Not looking good for this Kha'Zix. He needs to be able to press Mujin out, but we mentioned earlier that this is going to be one of War's toughest opponents. And Red Bulls right now, they are sitting 1-1. They've got 1 point on the board. They are middle of the pack at this current moment in time. And you could say they are looking for this 2-0. And I've got to say, War They've really got to be hoping for that 1-1 at least, because they are at the bottom of the leaderboard right now in a 0-2 situation.
But let's not forget, for Wind and Rain, we did turn around and say that for them, this is a late game composition. You know, RB are going to be looking here to try and get some early game pressure down, try and win out in the mid game more than anything else, or develop such a lead that it's nearly impossible for Wind and Rain to come back into things. If they let Wind and Rain have this, you know, hassle-free early game, yes, they're 400, 500 gold down at the minute, but that to them I think is a victory. They know they're going to get pressured out by these arguably superior lane opponents. It's just how do they manage to translate into the mid game, and right now, they're not really feeling too threatened. You know, you're down a couple of CS in the mid lane here. Top is dead even. Bot lane, you are down 10 CS thanks to all the harass that's come through from Kasing so far. But it's not the end of the world. They'll be happy if they can get to 20 minutes down, a couple of thousand gold, and they can then start trying to make advantages with that more late game scaling competition they've managed to pick up here.
So they're going to have to hope on that late game. Can the scaling get there though? We always kind of speak about, we always mention, can scaling compositions actually work out to the late game? Because it requires you playing that early very, very neatly, very fine. Just making sure you don't get too far behind where your scaling really just gets outmatched with such an early game jungler like a Lee Sin, early game mid laner like a Syndra as well. Just as soon as that level 6 hits, that mid lane's going to be in trouble, but Larssen at least being on that. Galio has a little bit of something in his belt. Woolite going fairly low in the bottom lane, Kasing. Going fairly aggressive here. Here comes the Gangplank. Oh, Woolite actually flashing away. Uses the leap as well. Ignite was on him, so that's going to be one big summoner spell down for Kasing, but trading it for 2 Woolites, that's more than a good trade.
Absolutely, taking that flash away from Woolite is a big deal here. Again, with the battle dance when you come, sorry, with the grand entrance when you come in here on the Rakan flash away by AOD. When you come in with that grand entrance for Kasing, you know, that jump isn't going to be much use to you. You have to take the beating that you're going to take to the face when he first arrives in with that one. And if you haven't got flash, you can find yourself in a world of hurt. And now that's down, they've got so much pressure in this bot lane. You know, if this tower, I was saying if it doesn't go down, but no one's really around to contest this. Dan, this is the issue here. He's already on 40% HP. If he goes in for a fight here, he's going to find himself in a very, very tough spot.
Yeah, he just can't engage. That's going to be first turret already going down at 8 minutes into the game. Oh, look at the gold lead as well. 2,000 at 8 minutes. This is absolutely huge.
Yep, that's just first tower blood for you, and that's the advantage that it can bring across. And already in the bot lane, you've seen a 700 gold lead starting to form over to Cedrian here. When you want Woolite to get to the late game, again, it's not a big deal if you're a little bit behind, but you need to stay relevant. And my concern here is that he won't be relevant. He's already down 2 waves. They've lost that bot lane tower, and the other macro objectives across the map that are going to go against them really isn't going to help him anymore going into this. But look in the top lane. JWoww already starting to be able to pressure out Thal.
Yeah, the Ravenous Flock is going to be able to sustain him up fairly nicely, and Never Move as well is something that Thal has to kind of look out for. But we mentioned previously, and we mentioned in the pick and ban, Thal can have an impact in the game when he's not even in a lane.
Yeah.
Sends up the ultimate, bada bing, bada boom, and that could be, it might result in a kill, might result in a couple of assists, but doesn't have to actually commit the teleport. Meaning that it's very, very easy for him to kind of sit in the top lane, farm all day, get to the late game Gangplank. You can see the late game really kind of showing here in the fact that he's bought a Cull, he's got a Sheen, no potions, can kind of sustain through the lane just eating those oranges.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to touch on very quickly a couple of minutes ago as well, is saying that, you know, he's acknowledged here that JWoww is in this for the late game, that there probably isn't going to be any chance at all to try and get any kills across. You know, that Catalyst of the Aeons does help you sustain through lane a lot easier now as well than the last Rod of Ages where it was more level-based. This one is on your mana expenditure, and what does Swain do? He spends mana and gets mana back very, very well. So for him, this is more Thal saying, you know, I want the gold from this Cull. I want to get closer to that Trinity Force than, you know, than maybe I would be expected to. Otherwise, get myself towards the Ghostblade, and suddenly I can start making a much bigger impact in the mid-game and really accelerate us to the win.
Dan actually kick flash from Muji. It's not going to happen, but it doesn't matter at all. Magic Felix comes up with the kill with the scan of the week. Unleashed Power wasn't even needed. Mujin messing up the flash kick, but hey, didn't matter whatsoever. Larssen couldn't come in for the ultimate either to save his jungler. Found a little bit of trouble. Does eat some of those tasty oranges to be able to get away though.
Yeah, this is what we spoke about a lot earlier on, is saying that Dan is one of the weaker links in the team, it feels, here as well. Limited champion pool, not got the early game pressure that Mujin's necessarily going to have, and already we're seeing it come into effect. Bot lane tower went down very quickly. Dan was there on 40% HP, could do nothing to save that one. He's now just died in his blue jungle. He's given over Herald pressure. I don't want to harp on the guy too much, but it feels like I'm already doing that right now. But a lot of this is just down to him.
Let's replay here, Des.
Just watch Dan here as he dives into the backlight. At first it looks good for him, but he's not aware. They don't have vision in the river. The vision ward that's currently sat just in the bush just below where Herald is right now, he didn't see there were 3 members there waiting for him. So he thinks, you know what, I can jump in here, I can engage on the Lee Sin, does just that, and suddenly finds himself cornered by 3 members of RB and finds himself going down. And now he's on the back foot.
Yeah, I mean, Kasing, like you said, came out of nowhere with the
He does that quite a lot.
Oh yes. Battle dance onto the Lee Sin, straight into the knock-up using the flash. That grand entrance is truly grand when you pick up a kill, and that kill is on Magic Felix as well. He's going to be extremely happy to get 2 stacks on his Darksteel. Got boots, got Morelos. He's sitting nice and tightly. Triple Doran's on the side of Larssen though. Again, has got a lot of that sustain. Doran's doesn't have the unique, passive now, so you're not able to gain back all the mana in the world for killing a couple of minions. 12 mana, I believe.
A lot of it's just about that early AP and the additional health that you get from it helps you sustain through some of the bursts that MagiFelix might be throwing at you. In this case, though, he's already gone towards 2 items at once. He's picked himself up the Ember. He's got himself towards the Spectre's Cowl as well. This is him just trying to say, right, I'm now building full tank this game. I don't care about damage now that I've got these 3 Dorans. There's nothing else that's going to bother me. I just want to be a big frontline for us in the late game. And it's like you alluded to in Champion Select. The issue here is that if Dan falls behind and they don't have this early to mid-game pressure, where does the damage come from in these middle fights? Like, they're relying so much, I think, on the Swain and the Tristana here that they need to be able to protect them going into the late game. And if Dan is irrelevant because he's finding himself shut down, because everything's going against them, they're going to find themselves really struggling in the first big fight that kicks off here.
Alien support now up in the top lane for both teams. Vision control, again, quite stellar for RB. Well, I count 1, 2, 3, 4 wards. One overside the Baron pit, just controlling that Baron area. War have kind of done the same, a little bit more defensively. Dan actually going for the gank here up in this top side, but it's not going to matter whatsoever because, again, he's going to get spotted out and he knows it. So he's going to have to back off. The ward's littering the river. They gave him double control ward just to make sure it's extra controlled, but
indeed. It seems to be, whether there's a major objective, RB just have wards down. You can already see there's 2 vision wards down on the bot side. They've got wards down on the top side. They know where Dan is at any given moment. Look, 2 wards around here in the jungle. Yes, they're freshly placed, but these are deep wards. They want to be able to track Dan and make sure he doesn't get an impact in this game. So far, he hasn't really. It's a comfortable start for RB. They're already 2,500 gold in the lead as well. We said by 20 minutes. Oh, a kick here onto Galio.
Larssen, yeah, Larsen's in trouble. Kick into the knock-up. Larssen very tanky still at this point in the game. JWoww using that teleport. Nether move straight on top of Kasing. Does use that grand entrance and balance to get away. That charm not coming through, hitting anybody, but using that speed up very nicely, and that will be them disengaging from the fight. JWoww burning that teleport as well. Leaves Star on that bottom side, just farming for free.
Does feel that way. You need someone to go and match down this Gangplank. Tharls getting free farm down here is never something that's ideal for you. Getting the passive stacks up, getting the cull stacks up, getting closer towards getting that Trinity Force as well. That's when he's going to really start making an impact. So I imagine the next Drake fight, which is coming up in a minute, will be the kind of point where he arrives and goes, guys, I am here. I have a Trinity Force. I'm going to be melting through your squishy. So let's keep an eye on what you guys are about to buy in just a couple of minutes. I imagine they want to try and contest this next Drake. Not sure which one it is coming up, but why not? You've already got one this far. Let's stack them up.
Yeah, that it is. Just makes that Elder Dragon a little bit more dangerous for War. MagiFelix handily dealing with Dan and Larssen.
Did Ghost, though?
Did use Ghost. Not a long cooldown by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. And remember, hark back to a few minutes ago, about 5 minutes. 5, 6 minutes maybe. I say about 4 or 5 now I think about it. Muujin did take the Rift Herald. Solo out with, well, he did have Kasing to help him out with the Battle Lance for the shields, but still has that in his inventory.
Nope,
has actually been used up now.
There you go.
Rift Herald has been used in the mid side, so now Red Bulls, RB even. There we go. I stuttered.
How many times can you tick off like a bingo card? Is it 3, 4, 5 on the same square? Too many times. But there's another tower going down now in the mid lane. That opens up the rest of the map for them here. Just as Drake comes up, this is perfect because they've got bot lane tower, they've got mid lane tower. They can afford now to wander straight into the Wind and Rain jungle, get some deep wards down, clear out the vision they've currently got. They've got 3 wards in their own jungle here thus far and look to take that second ocean. They've already got the 1, and this is really, really good for them going later into the game as they get that increased sustain. That's
absolutely massive as well because Larssen does have to farm away at his tier 2 turret. You even saw the Rift Herald taking a nice little chunk out of the tier 2. Now MagiFelix has a lot of control. RB 4,000 in the lead now. At 8 minutes, they were 2k. At 15, they're 4k. Just ever so slowly stretching that lead out. Thal hitting a nice little power spike of the Trinity Force. Hasn't finished that cold just yet, but still stacking up will result in a nice little bounty for him a little later on. And we've got to kind of question Woolite right now. He is farming up. He's doing fairly well in terms of CS against Cedrian, just going on how the lane's been playing out thus far. 152 to 140 is getting forced in underneath this turret now.
Might find themselves losing this tower. Just forgoing the Drake for now, focusing on getting all these outer towers down so they can start pushing Wind and Rain further back in towards their own base. Kind of thinking on it as well with the Gangplank. There's an engage though, straight away.
Charm onto Woolite, Ignite as well. There comes the Thal ultimate. Missile barrage, that barrage of cannon. Muujin jumps underneath the turret, is going to get taken out by AOD. AOD flashing as well, away from Magifelix. Thal will find himself across a map kill. AOD narrowly escaping with his life, but that's another 2 kills to RB.
It was a strange flash from Muujin there. He flashed on top of the Braum when he had literally no health left. So you know you were dead anyway, but why flash? But there you go. They've managed to get that kill away anyway. They'll take themselves this tower in the top lane again, expanding out that vision control they've got thus far. And, you know, Thal is going to be looking pretty good right now. He's 1-0-1. Once he starts getting towards this late game, you know, the Wind and Rain roster, despite the kind of strengths it does have in the late game, is very immobile. It's very slow moving. What does Gangplank play well into? Teams that cannot move around his barrels. So he'll be very, very happy getting to the stage where he's got a few items, planting the barrels down throughout the team, and with them unable to respond to what's going on, his damage is going to tear them apart. We've seen games before where he walks away with 3 or 4 kills in a late game team fight because his barrel placement is just so good. And against a team like this that are very immobile, it's going to tear them apart.
Have a look at this replay, Des.
Yeah,
Will I get knocked up? Cannon barrage.
This kind of follow-through was a bit crazy from him here. Dan was quite deep in, but it was a, you know what, I can get down here. This flash here is what confused me. He went for a flash kick, but didn't manage to get the kick off anyway. But he'll be happy with what they got from that. More towers. And Drake actually going over to Wind and Rain here. Kind of a slip up on RB's part. Not strictly in a massive issue. It is only an Ocean Drake. It would be a bit of a different story if it was Mountain or Fire, but then equally, they wouldn't be trying to make plays in the top lane if that was an option for them.
Yeah, I mean, Ocean to each side now, at least War recovering just a little bit. RB now sitting nice and comfy, 5,000 gold. It's increasing every single minute of the game.
Look in the jungle
3
as well,
turrets.
1,400 gold difference, 1,500 gold now. This is Dan being left behind in this game. He's got the same amount of gold as what Kasinga's got right now. That's how far behind he feels, how irrelevant he's going to be for quite a while in this game until he starts getting himself more items ahead. Muujin has finished off the boots, he's got the Phage finished as well. It's Dreamland for him right now, but Dan is a bit of a living nightmare.
He isn't having a nightmare. Woolite trying to take this turret. Thal does have Cannon Barrage up very, very soon. Hasn't he already used that TP? Anything too aggressive? Knows he can just pop Cannon Barrage down to the bottom side. Speaking of the bottom side, RB are going to siege up this mid-tier 2. JWoww trying to do a little something, but Ravenous Flock is going to help clear out those minions. That healing is going to be there for him, so at least he's got that sustain on his side. But the problem is, right now, War can't really answer to anything. Taking that tier 1 in the top, though, is going to be very, very good for them. Dan up here as well for the protection. AOD is going to come through, but Thal, the wave clear is still there and is still just a nuisance for War to deal with.
I like how Thal's picked up the Executioner's Calling here as well, just to deal with that swing going into the late game. And this is the issue again that we've seen. We saw when they were pushing a second ago with Muujin, Kasing, and Cedrian. The mobility on them, just JWoww stands there like, well, guys, it'd be good to get close to you sometime soon. They're just like, nah, thanks, mate. You can stay back all on your own back there just fine. It's a real struggle because without that kind of mobility in the team, they're going to really find it hard to get onto them unless AOD can land a great ultimate, unless he can get the Winter's Bite stun down onto them as well. That's going to be the catch they're going to be looking for. But at this point, look how far beyond they are already feeling. It's 6,000 gold over to the side of RB at the minute. Wind and Rain not having the softest introduction to this series as we expected.
The thing we've alluded to beforehand, as we just see actual charm and a knock-up landing on to JWoww. Here comes the Galio. Muujin in a lot of trouble here. Battle Dance to keep him alive. Here comes AOD from the bottom lane, from the top lane, even from the mid lane. I correct myself third time. Kasing, grand entrance away. War still trying to get this chase on. Woolite rotating a little bit too late. Dan's going to come through as well, but it's not going to matter. Red Bulls, RB are just looking for the disengage, and they do it perfectly. Tried to get the kill on JWoww, but no Executioner's Calling in the bottom lane. Will result in a lot of healing for him. And that'll be RB once more, pushing in that top side.
Mobility, that's the name of the game right now, and it's playing in RB's favour. They've got it in spades. Always able to escape from things like this. And this is where, again, where they rely on Dan. They rely on his mobility to get on top of people and to make them stick, make them get a bit slower so the rest of the team can catch up, but it's not really working out for them. I think from Wind and Rain here, the main thing they need to consider is we've got that one tower in the top lane. We've shown already that Woolite is starting to come online, that he can take these towers. Admittedly, he was up against Thal on his own, so it was a bit of an easier push. But that's where your strength lies now, into the mid game, into the late game. Now that Tristana is starting to come online, you've got to start playing around it. Group together, try and make something work for you, because otherwise, you're playing reactive the whole game. You're always reacting to RB's moves. You're not making the moves yourself, and that can really hurt them.
Well, you've got to look at the items in that regard then. The fact that Woolite has one item under his belt, and it's a static ship finish. No IE finish for him just yet. Cedrian, completely the opposite way around. He's got the Zeal, but he's also got the Infinity Edge, so he's packing out way more damage. Muujin getting that kick. Nice double kick. Grand Entrance comes through as well. JWoww's going to get stunned up here. Ravenous Flock activated for the regen. Magifelix on the sidelines. They know they need to disengage at this point. There was teleports available from either side. Larssen could have joined the fight as well as Thal. Cannon Barrage available. I mean, realistically, RB just slowly choking out War now with the pressure they're managing to exude.
That's the way it feels. I mean, more towers need to start falling down for them. I think, you know, RB had a very, very good early aggression with those first 3 towers, but it has slowed down in the last 5 minutes or so. Not really seen much come from it, but these towers are taking chip damage. Mid tower's quite low, bot tower is below half HP. And dare I say it, maybe RB here start thinking, you know what, Baron's available. Why don't we start looking towards that to make a play with this to really accelerate our lead? We don't want this Tristana to get to that late game stage where she does start giving us a headache. You know, we've mentioned it quite a few times. That is the end game here for Wind & Rain, is to get to that late game stage where maybe they can start winning fights. But right now, every single fight they're taking, they are losing.
Well, RB really haven't shown us all too much thus far in terms of pick potential. We know Kasing is a fantastic Rakan player. Mujin's champion pool seems endless. Thal, very, very good duelist on this. Jace was actually banned out against him this game. Now RB looking for something here, or at least taking this tier 2 turret in the top lane. Larson did get that, tried to get the stun off, but not opting for something like a Gargoyle or Stone Plate, which would be very, very good into the RB composition. Getting amongst all of them is what he needs to be able to do. Actually opting for that Randuin's for the slow.
We've seen that quite a few times, to be fair, where teams will just try and get away with that. They'll go for one of 2 builds, but this Baron being done now is absolutely unknown by Wind & Rain. As we said, RB are thinking, right, we can make more pressure with this Baron. Let's take it early on to no contest. As soon as Dan gets too close, Magifelix will be there, more than willing to just burst him out.
Well, that's exactly what you said a couple of minutes ago. RB need to accelerate their lead, and that's exactly what they're doing. War have no idea this is going on. They'll definitely know now as that global announcement happens. RB take a completely free Baron just off the back of knowing War was low. They had to back at that current moment in time. War trying to make a play on Magifelix. He's got the wave clear, he's got Scat of the Week, and he would just back off nice and tightly.
But look how many wards there are on this top side of the map at the minute for RB. They've got 6 or 7 wards going on around the river, around the Baron pit. There is literally no entry point for Wind & Rain there where they wouldn't be spotted or where they wouldn't have their own vision denied. So brilliant play by RB, controlling this vision excellently at the minute.
Here comes the next Drake. It's going to be a Cloud. Nothing too exciting, unfortunately.
But it's a Drake, right? Why not?
Exactly that. Do you remember Old Dragon?
I do.
Just flapping along, no real animations to him.
Yeah.
All that gold. That
Even
gold.
when he's always doing the same animation, whether he's moving or staying still.
Yeah,
it's
great.
beautiful. Remember old Baron?
Old Baron was terrifying. Baron with the Santa hat is my fondest memory of Baron. Hey, that was a long time ago.
And now we've got the 3-headed purple worm.
Oh, that we do, yeah. The 3-headed purple worm. Now, we spoke about it in draft. Late game. War. They need to make something happen right now. Woolite is getting to that point where he's kind of scary. Has got Infinity Edge finish. He's got the static
Down bot lane
fish
as well,
finish.
Potentially another kill going on down there. In fact, yeah, there you go. J-Well getting picked off entirely on his own. Just kind of... This is the issue again with the lack of mobility for him, is that although he's very, very good when you've got you're like a walking hunky front line coming through for the Woolite behind you, if Woolite isn't there, you have no damage realistically. You're built to be a tank at this point. And while now you find yourself out, this tower's under siege with Baron minions, it's a tough one.
Larson can't even get the flash in, doesn't want to go for an all-in engage. Woolite trying to clear the wave out. Here comes Mujin on the sidelines, trying to find a Sonic Wave, couldn't connect with anybody. But this Baron minion in the bottom lane is just going to be able to chunk that turret down. Magifelix taking that tier 2 in the mid. A slow chokehold, like I mentioned about 5 minutes ago. RB really just forcing War. They're on the ropes right now. Wind & Rain need to come back with something spectacular. They needed to like to just get online, get going, get these team fights in, because the amount of CC, the amount of frontline tanks they do have, minus Dan, is just absolutely extraordinary. Kasing, pulling Talisman Ascension. There comes the Cannon Barrage. Nice Glacial Fissure from AOD just to dissuade them. That's all it is going to do. Dissuade. No real engagement. They're too scared to engage right now.
This is my issue again, and we actually spoke about this with Larson when he was playing on M&M Gaming in the UK, was that their biggest issue was they were too scared to pull the trigger. In CSQ, their biggest downfall was they were too scared to make the plays that would have potentially brought them back into the game. You have to accept here that if you just play a standard game, RB are going to outpace you in every aspect. And already here, they're nearly 11,000, 12,000 gold in the lead. A couple of times Larson's had the opportunity to go for a flash taunt. Sometimes you've just got to pull the trigger and make it happen and hope for the best. It's just what they need to do, and they're too scared to do it, and RB are taking everything from them for it.
Oh, big engage here. Cedric actually has to flash over the wall. J-Wow was trying to follow him. Magifelix pops that ghost. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Thal is going to be able to push down that inhibitor turret. Thal is also just hammering away at that inhibitor. JWoww actually blowing the teleport and flash. Tried to get a sneaky flank off a minute ago. Kasing maybe looking for something here. Just flashing. Gets the knock off on AOD. Doesn't quite land the shockwave, but it's not going to matter. Woolite picks up 1 kill. Will Larssen end up falling. Too tanky right now. Woolite, his late game has been turned on, but so's has RB's. Ooh. They're just knocking on the Nexus turrets now. One is going to fall. Here comes the next one, possibly. Mugen going in. Dirk's back out again. JWoww in a lot of trouble. Does use the Zhonya's. That healing is going to get reduced by Thal. Gets deleted by Magic Felix. Mugen's just really able to force these kills, force the fights. AOD has been tagged. Sonic Wave is available. Can he go in? Still has the kick. There's just too much damage on the side of Red Bulls right now. They might just look for the win here, Des.
They still want to go for it, but Larssen is still sat on this flash. I don't think I've seen him use it once this game so far to go for these plays. It's kind of a do I, don't I, and it's always going to be a don't I. 26 minutes in the game, we said that RB needed to close this out before Woolite got online, and they are doing that just now.
Woolite only 2 items in the bank. The Zeal, extra Zeal, will it help him? I'm not sure it will. There goes one turret, the second one falls. Cannon Barrage almost finishing off Dan, but Red Bulls hammering on that Nexus, hammering at home, and making it a 1-0 in favor of RB right now. War looking a little bit disconjointed.
And it's as we said, Mugen ended their